Have you ever wondered how does a musician become great and successful in the first place? And the reality is, those musicians have privileges that gave them a head start. In this video, I'm going to share the 7 privileges that these successful musicians often have. Please bear in mind that if you don't have any of these privileges, doesn't mean you cannot be a great musician or your dream as a musician is over. In fact, it makes you a stronger musician. The first privilege, and probably the most well-known one, is to have supportive parents. If you have supportive parents, they will do everything for you. They will pay you for the music lessons, they will drive you to the music school or for the rehearsals, they will watch for your recitals, and they will support you until the very end for your music journey. If you do not have this privilege, then it's not the end of the world, of course, but it actually makes you a very independent musician and you're going to be committed to be a better musician every single day. I myself, for example, I do not have this privilege because my parents thought that music is just for hobby. Music is not the sustainable career path. I become a piano teacher, I try to be a best piano teacher, I try to be a best accompanist, and I have to practice every single day even though I am really tired or I am quite sick. So yeah, that's what makes me am right now, becoming a pianist. The second privilege is to have early exposure in music. What do I mean by that? Early exposure means to be introduced to the instrument by the age of 3, 4 or 5 and so on. You might have heard that many prize winners from competitions, big competitions, have started their own instrument from the age of 3, 4 and so on. It can be pretty discouraging for musicians like you and even me, who actually started really late when I was 10, but I started seriously when I was 16. Yeah, it was pretty late. Well, starting late is actually not a bad thing because I heard that many people started as late as 20s, 30s, etc. But they become a pretty good player or pretty good musicians in just 5 years or so. What matters is how consistent you are in studying or learning your instrument. Privilege number 3 is to have access to high quality instrument. You probably have access to, say, a Steinway concert grand or probably to own a Stradivarius violin, etc. Then it is the best thing that you can do because to have a high quality instrument, it means you can craft the best possible sound that you want. But let me tell you this, the great musicians actually do not start from high quality instrument. They in fact actually started by borrowing violins from friends, probably playing piano from the neighbors, or probably they didn't have the piano at first, they just had the keyboard like when I had in my first experience. I didn't have piano when I was 10 years old. The best example for not having this privilege probably Franz Schubert, the composer from the Romantic era. He didn't have a piano. However, he composed a lot of masterpieces like Winterreise, The Drought, and then piano sonatas, symphonies, you name it. So therefore, do not get discouraged if you do not have any access to those high quality instruments. What matters the most here is how determined you are on making the best music possible out of those broken instruments. Privilege number 4 is to have a passionate and knowledgeable teacher. Having a decent teacher will probably do just fine in the short term, but if your teacher is pretty knowledgeable, resourceful, and have many connections, then he or she might open many opportunities in the future. You could get many opportunities like recitals, perform with other musicians, or even getting recommended to big conservatories. Your teacher could expose your talent to many people out there. Well, if you do not have a teacher at the moment, then you could probably self-taught by watching many tutorials on YouTube, even joining the communities that dedicated to your instrument. So the first 15 years of my piano playing, I mostly self-taught even though I actually had a decent teacher. My previous teachers didn't have many resources or have very little connection. So I had to self-taught most of the time. Luckily, there are many videos that I can find on the internet or probably some resource to help me to be a pianist I am right now. Privilege number 5 is to live in the right environment. If you live in the city or in the suburb, it can actually matter. There must be a lot of music schools and concerts happening in the big cities rather than in the villages, for example. If you live far away from those events, concerts, music schools, good teachers, well, the internet has your back. So in my experience, I used to live in Urla for 8 years. It's actually like a place outside the big city in Izmir. Of course, for the piano lesson, I had to go to Izmir. So yeah, there was that. So in my opinion, this privilege is probably the least impactful one because you can be in anywhere to learn your instrument and probably just ask for online lessons and you'll be fine. Privilege number 6 is financial stability. Let's face it, music lessons, competitions, master classes, festivals, travels, they are actually cost a lot of money. For some people who are rich, this is actually going to open to many doors. And here's the truth, many musicians actually came from nothing. They just use free resources from YouTube tutorials and then they ask a lot in the forums or music communities. They just create their own opportunity by making their own content. So the goal is to be discovered on social media for their talent. When it happens, some people will actually support them financially by giving them opportunities to play at the cafe or many concerts, etc. And you will even gain more exposure. And the process goes on like that. The last privilege, and probably the most important privilege of a successful musician, is to have a good health, both physically and mentally. Well, if you are a healthy person and have like perfect 10 fingers or having a good voice, you have this privilege. Even I do have this privilege. I am mentally healthy as well, even though sometimes I do have stress or anxiety. If you somehow do not have this privilege, then it doesn't mean you cannot be a great musician. Take example like Paul Wittgenstein or Nicholas McCarthy, who only has one hand, yet they actually play piano extremely well. Another famous example is Nobuyuki Tsuji and Andre Bocelli. They are actually blind, but they are a great musician. I still just cannot imagine how could they achieve that. I don't want to call them disabled, I prefer to call them diff-able, stands for different ability. I think that's the best word to describe those musicians. So there you have it, 7 privileges of a successful musician. Now you might be thinking, what if I don't have any of those privileges? Does that mean I cannot be a successful musician? Of course not. So when you don't have any of those privileges, you develop resilience. You learn to work harder, to be creative, to carve your own path as a musician. So even if you start with nothing, you have a great passion, you have a great effort, and probably a very unique story of your own. I think that's what makes a great musician. If you find this video helpful, please give me a like. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.